Laura Wilson from Gold Star Work here. Today I am going to be making this little snowman card on the beach enjoying himself in a hammock. And I've chosen to do this card because I live in New Zealand and it's summer at Christmas for us. So that's why I did this card. So let's go and see how I painted this. So I've done a quick drawing of the card that I'm going to make today, and today I'm going to do a snowman on a hammock at the beach, just for something different. And first of all I'm going to mix up some colours. So I'm going to get my little palette here and I'm going to put my colours on. I'm going to start with a tinting white. And you always need plenty of white when you're using acrylic paint, so I'm going to make sure I've got plenty of white. I'm going to use some French ultramarine blue. I'm using my usual paints, which are the Atelier Interactive ones. This one is phthalo blue, which I'm going to also need for the sky. Got some cadmium yellow medium here. Got some burnt sienna. And some yellow ochre. I'm going to grab some sap green. So I'm going to mix up some sky colour first. I'm just going to use my palette knife and I'm going to grab a tiny bit of that phthalo blue and mix it in with the white. I'm going to mix some of that ultramarine in with the phthalo blue and the white as well. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfectly mixed, because I don't mind if there's a bit of variation in my sky. I'm going to put that to one side and get my painting. Now I can't fit them both in the screen, I don't think, so you can see them properly. And I'm just going to put some water on my brush, and I'm going to start off with that very light mixture that I made and do the bottom of the sky. And now, while that sky bit is drying a bit, I'm going to do the sand. So I'm going to get my yellow ochre and my white. I'm going to grab a little bit of the blue, so I'm using the ultramarine blue for that. And that's just to grey up that colour a bit so the sand isn't just bright yellow. And I can put a little bit of the cadmium yellow on that little bit. Yeah, can you actually see that, what I'm doing? And then I can put a little bit of this burnt sienna in a bit as well, just to deepen up the colour a little. So I've got my main sand colour in the middle, and a lighter colour and a darker colour. And I'm going to put more white into this bit and a bit more of that cadmium yellow. And it doesn't matter if the colours aren't completely mixed either. So I'm going to do the sand. And then I'm going to dry this off before I do the water, because I don't want to mix the sand with the water at this stage. So I'm going to do another coat on the sky because the sky looks a bit patchy to me. So I'm going to just go in with the same colours in the same places and just do another coat. So it's not completely dry, but that doesn't matter because it's this line here that I want to be dry. And I didn't tell you what I was using for a brush, but I'm just using a number 12 little flat, or it's more technically a bright brush. We don't really do brights and flats where I am. They're just all called flat brushes. So I know in some of the painting tutorials I see on YouTube from America, they call some of them brights and some of them flats, and the only difference is that how long the bristles are. So a flat has shorter bristles, but don't really do the longer bristles here. So I'm going to use some phthalo turquoise for the water. And I'm going to again mix that in with some white. Can you see that? And you can just see what I'm doing. And I had some of that sky colour still on my brush, and that's fine. I'll add a little bit of green in there, and I'll make that a little bit greener. And I'm going to put my water in. And I'm going to darken that up even more. I've just added some of that ultramarine blue into the turquoise mix. I'm going to wipe my brush off because I've got too much paint on there while I do the line between the horizon and the sky. Now this line along here, you do want to try and get as straight as you can, because if you have it curving or crooked, it's going to put your whole picture off, really. It's not. So when you have a curving horizon line, you get that kind of fishbowl effect. Oops. Then I'm just taking some of that lighter turquoise colour and just mixing it in with that darker colour. And again, we need this to dry before I go on to the next bit. So for this next bit, I'm going to mix up some browns because we're going to do the trunks of the tree. So I'm just using the ultramarine and the burnt sienna, and you can see how that makes a lovely deep brown. And I can mix some of this yellow ochre into it to lighten it up, and some of that sand colour that we made I can also mix to make an even lighter colour. So I don't need every colour in a tube of paint, I can just mix what I have. And I want to mix a bit more of this colour over here because I think this is going to be my base colour. And I'm going to change my brush now. So I'm going to use a round brush this time. I'm going to use number 10, if you can see that. And I'm going to do my palm trees, and I'm going to wet my brush. I'm going to load some paint on my brush, and then I'm going to do my palm tree. So I'm going to start off with this one on this side. I'm just going to lightly put that in so I know that I've got it in the right place, because I can't really see my drawing anymore. And then I'm going to start shaping. So I'm in New Zealand, so I wouldn't necessarily use palm trees. I would probably make these cabbage trees, because that's a New Zealand native that we often have close to the beach and in the coastal forests and things. So mine's not going to be an actual palm tree, but you can do the palm tree in the same kind of way, or whatever tree you want to do that speaks to you in the area you are at, so you can personalise it however you want. I can't really see what I'm doing because my hand's in the way. So I'm just using that same brown colour and just keep dipping back into it so that I've got enough paint to move around. So I need to know what side of the picture my sun is coming from, so I know which side to put my shadows on. And the sun's going to come from this way. I'm going to get a smaller brush. This one is a number 2 round. I always get messy when I paint. And I'm going to go into that dark brown that we mixed up earlier. And I'm just going to run it along this shadow side of my little tree and run it on the inside of this tree. And I'm also going to get some of the sand colour and mix a bit of that dark colour into it, and just do a little bit of shading, get a little bit more of that dark around the base of the tree. And I'll add some more shading once I get the hammock and the snowman in, because then I'll know where everything is supposed to be going. Just adding a few little highlighty bits where the sun's shining on the sand. And then I am going to get my dagger brush. This is a 3/4 dagger brush. So it's an interesting shape. And I'm going to mix up some green. So I've got my sap green here. I'm going to take some of that, and I'm going to take some of my ultramarine blue and mix it in with that, and some of the white from my sand there has got into it, but that doesn't matter. I don't mind that. And so I want a touch of red in this green to desaturate it, to make it a bit more dull. So I'm going to go into my burnt sienna and mix that into that green, and that's going to make it a more olivey green. And I need some water on my brush to get the paint flowing. It's quite warm here today, so the paint is drying. So I'm going to just spray my palette with a bit of water. Hopefully that'll help. So I've got my base green now, and I'm going to go in with my leaves. Now, if you're doing a palm tree, you'll just do all of the leaves coming out and do little bits, but cabbage trees are different from palm trees. So this is not a palm tree, it's a New Zealand cabbage tree. So they have a different kind of leaf structure. So whatever tree you're going to paint, just make sure you know what the leaf structure looks like. So study a photo of one, or if you've got one close to you, have a look at it. So this is what cabbage trees look like in New Zealand. Where we go camping, we often see these little cabbage trees, and there is actually a couple of cabbage trees where I'm camping. They are a little bit close together, but I always think if they were a bit further apart, it'd be perfect for a hammock. So that dagger brush makes making these kind of leaves really easy. But you don't have to use a dagger brush, just use any kind of thin brush that you like. And I'm going to mix some darker colour. So I'm going to grab some of that burnt sienna. I'll bring my palette over so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm grabbing some of that burnt sienna and some more of that ultramarine, and I'm darkening up that green. So now it kind of looks like a grey. If you put this next to different colours, it would look more green, but because it's next to the green, it doesn't look very green, but it is green. It's just a very grey, dark green. And I'm just going to put in a few darker bits, just to give my tree a little bit of dimension. Now I've got too much paint on my brush, which is why it's not flowing very nicely, so I need to wash my brush out and just reload it with paint so that that's better. You can get a nice bit of paint going. Now when you're doing the darker bits, remember which way you want your shadows, and concentrate more dark on the side where the shadows are supposed to be. And then I also want some lighter green to put on the sunnier side. So I'll bring my palette back over, and I'm just going to use that colour that I mixed up for the sand and just put a little bit more yellow, a little bit more green to make a very light colour. And I'm going to do a few highlighted bits on the leaves. Now the trick here is don't go overboard with your highlights. You just want a few. So there's my few little highlights for my leaves. Now I'm going to do the hammock. So I'm going to go into this brown colour here that we mixed up earlier for the tree trunk, for the ropes on the hammock. And I'm going to need some bright red, so I'm going to use my Naphthol Red Light. And this is a nice bright red. This is help give it that Christmas kind of look. And so I'm basically drawing in my hammock with that colour. I'm still using my dagger brush, which may not be the best one to be using. I should really be using my smaller round brush for that, but got so involved in painting I forgot about changing my brush. Happens sometimes. So then I can get a smoother edge on there. I'm going to go into my white and I'm going to sketch in my snowman so I can see where he is supposed to be. And now I can see where I need to put my red, because I want my bumps in my hammock to correspond with the bumps in the snowman. So I'm going to dry this off because I don't want the red mixing in with my snowman. So just while that paper is cooling, I'm going to get a bit of the yellow colour and do a bit of highlights on my tree trunk. As I said, the trick is not to go too crazy. It's a bit cooler, so I'm going to get my bigger round brush again. And make sure that it's really clean, so dip it in some clean water. This is the number 10 one, and I'm just going to get my white and I'm just going to draw in the snowman. Then I'm going to get some of that sky colour that I used up there. So I'm getting that darker blue colour. And I'm going to use some of that to help me shape my snowman. So I'm just using that to make some shade to help shape his body a bit. Then I'm also going to use some of the yellow with white in it to show where the sun is shining on his body. I'm just wiping off my brush, I'm not washing it, and I'm mixing it into that wet white paint. And I'm going to grab some more white because there's a bit too much yellow there. So I'm doing this while the white paint is still wet, so it all just blends together. And you can see how that shapes the little snowman, so he looks like his body's got a bit of shape. I'm going to go back into the red to do the hammock, tidy up the hammock a bit. I'm going to use my little dagger brush, and I'm going to go into some of the lighter sand colours for the rope that's holding the hammock up onto the tree. I'm going into a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to get my small round brush that I had, the number 2, and I'm going to paint in a Christmas hat here. Now I want to make a bit of shape in his hat, so I'm going to take some of that bright red and I'm just going to mix some of that ultramarine blue in to make it a little bit of a darker purpley red. So again, I don't need another lot of paint, I'm just using those same colours. So I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colours. So I'm just using 8 colours and mixing all my paints from there, because 8 colours is actually quite a lot anyway. And I'm going to use that same colour that I just mixed to shape my hammock as well. Now this red paint is not quite dry, so my paint can mix with it, and some of it will stand out more and some of it will mix in. I'm going to mix a bit of that bright red that I've got with a bit of that cadmium yellow to make a nice bright orange. So I'm going to make his little carrot nose. And I'm using some of that dark brown that we used on the shady side of the tree. A decent amount on my brush. And do his little eyes. To do his arms. So I'm kind of sketching them in first, so I make sure I get them in the right place. Now I might dry that red off before I do his other arm, because otherwise I'm going to get into trouble. So I've dried that off so it's not wet anymore, and I'm going to put his other arm in. Put a bit of shadow around where his arm goes into his body. What does he get? And I'm going to try and do his little mouse. I want him to be smiling because he's very happy. Now I need a bit of shadow on the sand. So I'm just mixing a bit of that dark brown into that tree trunk colour. Just going to put a little bit of shade. Now, I'm not in my studio at the moment, otherwise I'd probably put some iridescent medium on the snowman because it would just make him shine a bit, but I haven't got any at home here at the moment, so I can't do that at the moment. And the other thing I could do is do some Christmas lights on the trees. So I'm going to do a few little Christmas lights on the trees. Going to get one last colour. This is Quinacridone Magenta, because I want some pink for my lights. So I'm just going to find a spot somewhere on my palette, and that's quite a dark colour, so I'm going to just mix a little bit of white with it. And then just do some little lights. And then I'm just going to have a look and see if there's any other little bits I want to do before I call it finished. And now he's all finished. So I'm going to make him into a card, and then I will be ready to call it done. A snowman in the sun, since in New Zealand we have a sunny Christmas. Happy painting, everyone. Bye. And there's the finished card, all ready for Christmas.